Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the folks who dig through the sources, the articles, all that research so you don't have to. We pull out the key stuff you need. Our mission, like always, is to get you up to speed fast. Consider it your shortcut to knowing what matters. And today, we're diving into something really fascinating, a real footnote in music gear history, but a cool one. We are talking about the Electro Harmonix Hotfoot mechanical expression controller.
Yeah.
If that name means nothing to you, stick around, because this is a piece of 1970s tech that's, well, it's both brilliant and kind of wonderfully absurd. Look, this isn't just about some random foot pedal. It's about how Electro Harmonix, EHX, the legends, tackled a really basic performance problem. And they did it with what's basically a robot foot. Seriously, it was a hands-free control idea, but totally mechanical. No electricity needed for the control part. It's just a whole different way of thinking compared to how we do things now. Okay, let's get into it.
Right. And to really get the Hotfoot, you got to place it in time. Think mid-70s, like 1976, 77 maybe. This was peak EHX experimentation time. I mean, they weren't just making big muffs, right? They were pushing boundaries. Stuff like the microsynth, those early digital delays, the electric mistress flanger. These pedals had lots of knobs, complex controls.
Yeah, and that immediately created a problem for musicians, didn't it? Like, if you've just got a simple boost pedal, fine, you stomp it on or off, easy. But then you look at something like, say, the Deluxe Memory Man, or even more, the microsynth. You've got knobs for resonance, filter sweeps, decay time, blend, stuff you might actually want to change while you're playing guitar, or keys.
Precisely. That's the core issue. The second you needed to tweak a really important setting, maybe crank the feedback on your delay so it starts to oscillate like crazy, well, you had to stop playing.
Yeah.
Bend down. Fiddle with a tiny knob. It just kills the vibe, the performance flow.
Right. Instant mood killer.
So the Hotfoot was Mike Matthews' answer to that physical problem. It was purely a utility thing. It didn't make any sound itself. Its whole purpose was just to let you control those complex pedals without taking your hands off your instrument.
I just love that thought process. Okay, hands are busy. Let's give them a foot that literally turns the knob. It's so practical in a weird way.
It really tells you a lot about their engineering mindset back then. You know, if they couldn't solve it easily and cheaply with electronics in a way that worked for everything, they just figure out a mechanical way, build something physical.
Okay, so that brings us to the core idea, the mechanism. This is where it gets really interesting, you said, because it works so differently from other expression pedals.
It's a completely different philosophy. Yeah. It wasn't like today's expression pedals at all. Today, you plug an expression pedal into a jack, right? And it sends a control voltage, a CV signal. The pedal receiving it understands that voltage.
Standard stuff now.
Right. The Hotfoot, it skipped all the electronics for the control signal part. It was direct physical action. It was this heavy-duty steel treadle. Looked a lot like their old wah pedals, or the talking pedal, if you've seen those. Big and solid. You'd put it on the floor next to the effect pedal you wanted to control. And the key part was this mechanical link, a connection, that physically grabbed onto the knob of that other pedal.
Whoa, hang on. It physically clamped onto the knob, like the little plastic knob on the Memory Man or whatever.
Yep.
That sounds precarious. Like, how did they make that work without snapping the knob off or having it slip, especially if you're stomping on the treadle?
Well, that was definitely the engineering challenge. And looking back at sources, it seems like they might have tried a couple of slightly different ways to do it. The main ideas involved either a kind of flexible cable, almost like a tiny version of bike's brake cable or a speedometer cable, or sometimes people describe a more direct geared system, like a clamp with little gears. So with the cable idea, the cable ran from the treadle part up to a little cap or attachment that you'd push onto the actual knob. You press the treadle, it pulls or turns the cable rotates the cap, and the knob turns. Simple physics.
Right.
The geared system sounds a bit more robust, maybe like a tiny clamp, almost like a little vice grip that locked onto the knob shaft maybe. And it had a gear mechanism. That gear would translate the big movement of your foot on the treadle into the small, precise rotation needed for the knob, 0 to 10.
That difference between a cable and a gear, that's actually really telling. It shows how tricky it must have been to get it right, because you need that control to be smooth and predictable, right? If the cable stretched or the clamp slipped even a little bit,
the whole thing's useless. Yeah, absolutely. You needed that hands-free, smooth control. That was the whole point. And they went mechanical because, think about it, mid-70s, there wasn't a standard for control voltage in pedals. Not like in synths. Trying to get different pedals from different brands to talk to each other electronically, forget it. And building custom circuits for every single pedal, too expensive.
So the mechanical way was universal. Slap it on any knob.
Pretty much. It was universal, tough, and crucially, it needed no batteries, no power supplies.
Zero power, just metal and movement. I love it.
Pure mechanics.
Okay, so let's talk about using it. This wasn't just for show, right? It was meant for their really complex pedals. What kind of sounds could you actually do with this thing?
Oh, it totally changed how you could play those effects. Think about the Deluxe Memory Man. A stone-cold classic. Normally you set the delay time, the feedback, the modulation, and that's your sound. But hook up the Hotfoot to, say, the feedback knob. Now, you're not just setting it. You can slowly push the treadle down while you're holding a note or a chord. The feedback increases. The repeats build up. Maybe it starts to go into that crazy self-oscillation, that runaway pick-shifting sound.
Yeah, that classic dub sound or psychedelic freakout.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you can pull your foot back, smoothly cut the feedback off, right on cue, all while you're still playing. It's like you're performing the effect itself, not just triggering it. You're shaping the echoes in real time.
That makes it so much more dynamic. Like, instead of a static echo, it's alive.
Totally. It adds this whole other layer of expression.
And what about on something like the microsynth? That must have been wild.
Oh, yeah. The microsynth is basically an analog synth crammed into a pedal, right? But often if you just set the filter sweep or resonance knobs and leave them, it can sound a bit stiff, a bit fixed. Put the Hotfoot on the filter frequency knob. Now suddenly you've got a foot-controlled synth filter. You can do these huge dramatic filter sweeps while you play. Like a wah pedal, maybe, but way more extreme, covering a huge frequency range.
So you get that massive wow or yow synth sound.
That big dynamic synth growl. Yeah, the kind you hear all over funk and prog rock from that era. You could really play the filter.
It basically let guitarists or keyboard players treat those big EHX boxes less like simple stomp boxes.
And more like components in a modular synth setup.
Exactly.
Continuous control. It turned the effect into an instrument you can manipulate constantly.
So the Hotfoot, it occupies this kind of weird spot in the EHX family tree, doesn't it? It's not an effect, it's a tool. Like the Switchblade AB box, it really shows that Mike Matthews was thinking bigger, right? Not just selling sounds, but selling ways to perform with those sounds, a whole system.
That's a really important point, I think. If you look at the bigger picture, the legacy of this kind of odd, forgotten controller, it actually runs pretty deep. For one thing, just how unique it was, this mechanical bridge solution. It really shows EHX was willing to try basically anything to give players more control. I mean, nobody else, no other major pedal company then or now really went down that road of a mass-produced mechanical knob turner.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate example of thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
Or maybe putting a mechanical foot on the box.
Yeah. It really captures that experimental, almost reckless spirit of 70s gear design. Let's just try it. And second, you can definitely see it as a precursor, a foreshadowing, really, of the expression pedals and MIDI control and CV stuff we take for granted now. Mike Matthews was obviously thinking about interactive live control way back then, long before there were easy, standard ways to do it electronically in the pedal world. The problem they were solving with the Hotfoot, it's the exact same problem solved by modern expression pedals. They just use gears and cables instead of voltage.
Now, if you're listening and thinking, wow, I want one, good luck with that. Our sources all seem to agree original Hotfoots are seriously rare these days.
Yeah, they're tough to find. Part of it might be fragility. You know, those mechanical linkages, cables, clamps. Maybe they didn't always hold up to heavy use on stage.
Right, stomping on that thing night after night.
But probably the bigger reason is that they just weren't seen as essential, maybe. They didn't make sound. So when someone sold their old Memory Man or microsynth, maybe the Hotfoot just got lost or tossed out. It was an accessory.
Yeah, like the original box or manual.
Gone. Exactly. So now they've got this real cult following among collectors. They're a physical piece of history, a fantastic reminder of clever analog problem solving. I mean, every modern EHX pedal that needs expression control, from the latest Memory Man reissue to their synth pedals, they all just have a standard TRS jack for expression, for voltage control. Simple, reliable, standard.
Makes sense.
But the Hotfoot stands apart. It's this quirky, physical, maybe slightly impractical, but brilliant piece of history. The pedal that literally put a foot on a knob.
So, okay, let's zoom out. The Electro Harmonix Hotfoot. It was this incredibly practical, totally mechanical, maybe slightly bonkers answer to a control problem, a problem we now solve completely differently with voltage, with digital signals. It's a really cool piece of performance tech history, all about that fundamental need musicians have: control. So what's the big takeaway for us today, looking back at this thing?
Well, I think it forces us to remember that innovation isn't always about the newest software or the fastest computer chip. we tend to get really excited about the evolution of sound itself, right?
Right.
The quest for the perfect delay, the ultimate fuzz tone.
Sure, that's the sexy part.
Yeah. But the Hotfoot highlights the evolution of control, how we interact with our gear, and that's just as important. It reminds us that sometimes maybe the most elegant solutions are actually the simplest ones, even if they seem low-tech now. We live in this age where everything seems to rely on software updates, complex digital handshakes, things that can sometimes feel a bit fragile.
Firmware updates for your toaster oven?
Right. And the Hotfoot, this hunk of metal and mechanics, it kind of poses this provocative question, I think. Are there problems we're facing today, maybe even with our music gear, maybe elsewhere, that we're trying to solve with super complex digital systems? When maybe, just maybe, there's a simpler, purely mechanical, more robust solution waiting to be found or rediscovered.
Like, are we overcomplicating things sometimes?
Maybe. It's just something to think about, The next time you're stuck troubleshooting some weird digital glitch, maybe think about the Hotfoot.